Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's National Nutrition Month presentation. My name is Ashley, and I am a registered dietitian in the Nutrition Services team. Today, we're going to talk about National Nutrition Month, and we're kind of titling this presentation Fueling Your Busy Day and how we can fuel ourselves throughout our work days. So, March is National Nutrition Month, and each year during March, we celebrate this month. It kind of helps to draw attention to our food habits, our nutrition habits, invites everyone to learn about making informed food choices and developing those healthy eating and physical activity habits. It started in about 1980 with growing interest in nutrition. And each year there's a theme for National Nutrition Month. So this year's theme is Beyond the Table, which kind of highlights how the food choices we make impact the environment around us and addresses the many ways and places that we eat, like on the go or away from the table, away from home, and kind of always showcases the expertise of dietitians and making sure you get help from experts in the field. For today's presentation, like I said, we're going to focus on kind of the workday and how we can use food to provide ourselves with the energy we need to maintain our energy levels while we're at work and throughout the rest of our day as well. So some things I hope to accomplish during today's presentation. First of all, I want you to understand the importance of eating a variety of foods from all the food groups. We're going to define and understand what a healthy eating routine is. We're going to identify ways we can eat with the environment in mind and identify how the Nutrition Services team can help you if you need a little extra help. So we're going to begin by talking about MyPlate. This is the USDA's MyPlate. This is the image they give us. And basically, it's a visual representation of what it looks like to create a well-balanced plate, which includes all the food groups. So MyPlate encourages us to balance our meals so that half of our plate includes fruits and vegetables, and the other half features a protein food or foods and some kind of a grain. And then, of course, we have a serving of dairy or calcium-rich milk alternative to complete the meal. So it's important to note here that many Americans are not getting enough fruits and vegetables. That's why a lot of our programming that we do in our department emphasizes recipes that include lots of fruits and vegetables. If you think about the last few meals that you ate, was half of your plate filled with fruits and vegetables. For a lot of us, that's kind of a struggle. Even as a dietitian, I struggle to make sure I'm getting in the recommended amounts of vegetables. And I had to put lots of thought into achieving this every day. It's also important to note that some meals will contain a mixture of foods that have several of these food groups, so it may not be portioned out in a way on a plate that looks just like this. You might have soup that's made with chicken, noodles, and vegetables that might satisfy 3 of these food groups, your protein, your grain, and your vegetables. But, you can still kind of think about how you can balance that out to create this balance that MyPlate shows us. Maybe you have, as a snack later after that meal, some yogurt with some fruit. So to kind of get in all those groups. So it's not that every single meal should look perfectly like this. It's just kind of a little guide. Let's see. Another example of how we can use this as this visual as a tool. Sometimes for lunch, I like to have a big salad with maybe some canned salmon. So that seems like a pretty healthy meal. I've got a big serving of vegetables and some protein in there. But one thing I've learned is that because I am missing some of the food groups, I'm missing grains in there, I will usually be hungry a couple hours after eating that meal. So for me, that sends a message that I need to add probably some starch in there, some kind of a grain like quinoa, or maybe some starch from beans that might actually give me more balance so that the meal keeps me energized and not hungry hopefully close to the end to the next time I am planning on eating. A lot of times I will need a snack in there. So if I don't have fruit with a meal, I'll usually use fruit as my kind of in-between snack. So it's just a visual to kind of help you understand how you might need to fuel and balance your meals a little bit better. This visual also hints at keeping those portion sizes in check. So you can see the different sizes of each categories. This image was developed with the idea of using about a 9-inch plate. And we used to focus heavily on memorizing cups and ounces, and that's a little bit overwhelming. This visual is a nice way to simplify that. And a little note on the dairy group here, I like to call it the calcium group. Dairy is a good source of calcium, but not everyone can digest it properly or choose to avoid it for other reasons. So to be a little bit more inclusive, I like to call it the calcium group. Other non-dairy sources of calcium include cooked greens, canned fish, seeds like sesame seeds, chia seeds, soy milk, almonds, tofu, white beans are all great dairy sources, or great sources of calcium that aren't necessarily dairy. And if you want a little more guidance on MyPlate or these food groups, myplate.gov is actually a really great website to visit to learn more about the food groups, and maybe if you want to know more about the vitamins and minerals that are in those. All right, so we talk a lot about what we eat, and what we eat is important to think about. But today I want to talk a little bit about when and how we eat, along with thinking about achieving that balance we discussed in MyPlate. We need to think about how the fuel you get from the food you eat is spread out throughout your day. So when I meet with clients, this is one of the first things that I try to understand. I ask questions like, what time do you wake up? When do you eat your meals and snacks? And are there times in your day where you feel very hungry? What time of day do you struggle to make good nutrition choices or have cravings? All of us have such unique lifestyles and routines and schedules, habits, preferences, demands, food budgets, cooking skills, and so many other things that can influence your choices. It's important to understand how your unique habits can impact your ability to eat well. So let's talk a little bit about why a healthy eating routine is important. Hopefully you can see this okay. But it's been said that eating breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And while I tend to believe that, all of our meals are important, a good breakfast really can set you up for success. And then on the other side, a poor breakfast can really set you up for failure for the whole rest of the day. Skipping breakfast or doing something that I like to call skimping breakfast, that is having breakfast that isn't enough food, isn't very substantial, like a bowl of cereal or something like that. When you don't get enough of the right nutrients or calories at a meal, it can kind of set you up for cravings or overeating in general, and feeling like a loss of control or decreased willpower later in the day when it comes to making those good nutrition choices most of us know we should make. When your willpower is decreased, the food environment that we live in, where there's unhealthy food all around us most of the time, it's very likely that you will grab something quick, some kind of easy fuel that maybe isn't the best choice or doesn't exactly meet your nutrition needs. So let's talk for a minute about what that can look like and a very common scenario that I see. So you wake up and you're rushed to get to work, not a lot of time to eat breakfast. So you grab something quick and easy, let's say a granola bar. So we're at the very top of my circle chart here where we skip or skimp breakfast, and maybe have some sweetened coffee. I know a lot of the clients I see have some kind of a sugared beverage in the morning. You get to work and you're distracted with your day's responsibility. So keep in mind, your body has been fasting overnight. So when you wake up, your body needs to get some energy. That's why it's called breakfast. You're breaking your fast from overnight. So when you wake up and you skip or you skimp breakfast, you continue to ignore your hunger signals. that can trigger some sugar and fat cravings. Your body's going to begin to send that signal louder and louder that you need some fuel and cause you to crave easy, quick, fast fuel. So that's probably going to be something like fat and sugar. So then what I'm talking about with the willpower decrease is that you've put yourself in a state where making a healthy choice will be difficult because the signals in your body, and when I say signals, I'm talking about hormones that signal hunger and cravings. Those are sending all those messages that you need to eat fuel, you need sugar, you need fat. And then this unhealthy food environment that we live in, that most of us are kind of surrounded with. Say you walk into the break room and there's a box of donuts and, they're difficult to resist because you have kind of set yourself up for those cravings. So it's estimated that we make about 200 food-related decisions each day. And when you haven't given your body the things that it needs when you need it, because of all those signals in your body, it gets harder and harder to make those good nutrition signals, those good nutrition choices. So following the circle chart here, we ignore our hunger signal, willpower decreases, sugar and fat cravings increase, and then you choose a less healthful option, or maybe even you overeat at the next meal you have. And a lot of times for a lot of people, this leads to a lot of guilt and shame. And then maybe you feel like the right thing to do is to skip or eat a very light meal the next time you eat. So this is just kind of a vicious cycle. It can happen at other meals too. Maybe you get busy and you breeze through lunch, or you grab something quick that doesn't necessarily meet your needs. So even though your brain might be distracted at that moment, your body keeps score of what's going on and starts sending out those loud signals that can really derail your intentions to eat well. So now I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in your body and blood sugar control. So when you're relying heavily on quick fuel, and we're going to use sugar as an example because this is something that I see that so many people are dealing with, and they use it as kind of a quick pick-me-up option. So our blood sugar naturally fluctuates throughout the day. We're going to use this graph as we talk about those different responses in our blood sugar based off of the food we eat. So going back to our breakfast example, let's talk about some of those high sugar breakfast options out there. You know what I'm talking about, these giant muffins with sugar crystals glistening on the top. That's basically cake. We're talking about sugary cereals, croissants, donuts, pastries, granola bars, our sweetened coffee beverages. Basically these food items that kind of lack fiber and protein and vitamins and minerals have lots of sugar that can cause a big spike in your blood sugar. So big sugar spikes are typically followed by a big sugar dip. So you can see on our graph here, the x-axis on the horizontal axis represents time, and the vertical axis going up and down represents your blood sugar levels. So you can see on the graph, the point right here where it shows that represents a meal. So you can see the three different responses based on kind of maybe a high sugar meal. The red line is a big spike followed by a big dip. So this might be a meal that doesn't have a lot of protein, doesn't have a lot of fiber, and has instead a lot of sugar. And you can see the big red spike, what happens there. And then the yellow line represents maybe a little bit better option. Maybe this meal included a little bit more fiber, a little bit more protein, and less sugar. And then you can see the blue line, nice, steady rise followed by a real slow fall that lasted and helped you feel full and satisfied 3 or 4 hours. And that helps you feel much better when your blood sugar is kind of in that range. So you might be thinking, okay, I don't have diabetes. I'm not worried about my blood sugar. But what is important to understand is how this affects your appetite and cravings and your energy levels. So keeping your blood sugar in kind of a healthy range, even if you don't have diabetes, helps you feel well energized and is better for your long-term health. If you're wondering how we define sugary, I like to use the guidance from the American Heart Association on added sugar. So we're not talking about sugar that's naturally found in a glass of milk or a piece of fruit. We're talking about sugar that's added to foods like chocolate milk or sugary coffee or candy, things like that. So the recommendation is different for males and females. So for reference, a grande iced coffee at Starbucks with vanilla syrup has about 20 grams of added sugar. So if you're a female, you've nearly met your entire day's worth of sugar just in your beverage. So if you want to enjoy some sweets, think about how you want to spread it out and try not to use all of that allotment at breakfast or at one time. I like to tell people to try to use some of that sugar allotment to sweeten something that your body needs. So for example, oatmeal. I like to put a little bit of syrup in my oatmeal. I'm still going to get a little bit of a spike in my blood sugar, but not a huge one that I would have if I had, say, that sugary beverage along with that food. Plus, I'm providing my body with some of those other nutrients in the oatmeal that I actually need. So I'm not trying to say here that we should never have sugar and that sugar is terrible and toxic. Rather, it's just something that doesn't give us the best kind of fuel that we need. And when we rely on it too heavily, it's going to keep you on this energy roller coaster that's just not ideal. So instead, if you can focus on making each meal well balanced using that MyPlate food groups, you may find that you're not craving sweets as much. You're not relying on them as a fuel. I definitely have some sweets throughout my day, but I try not to exceed that recommendation and make sure that I'm providing my body with those helpful fuel sources from the MyPlate foods first before dipping into relying on sugar as a true source of energy for my day. All right, to kind of round out our discussion, let's discuss a little bit about what a better breakfast option might look like. So here are some examples. Ideally, we want to get a combination of some carbohydrates, some protein, and some unsaturated fats. So for our carbohydrate group here, we have some examples like fruit, grains, oatmeal, milk, yogurt have some carbohydrates. Starchy vegetables like potatoes or sweet potatoes have some carbohydrate. But notice those plus signs in between these groups. We really want to have a combination of carbohydrates, proteins, and unsaturated fats. The next one, and this is one that I see a lot of people really struggle with, is getting enough protein in with breakfast. It's recommended to get about 20 or 30 grams of protein in at breakfast time. So, for example, you see your oatmeal here has some nuts added to it. Some people like to add some peanut butter to the oatmeal or have it with a glass of milk or soy milk. Other good protein items are listed here, including one of my favorites, the chia seeds with Greek yogurt. A lot of time when we talk about our protein foods, people immediately think meat. And meat is a good source of protein, but we need to be really mindful of choosing those lean protein options that don't have a lot of saturated fat and a lot of breakfast meats like sausages and bacon, things like that. They also tend to have a lot of sodium as well. So I encourage you to consider some other plant proteins for your breakfast. So we have listed some seeds, nuts, tofu, yogurt, all of those things are great sources. And then a little bit of fat. People tend to think fat is bad, but our body does need some fat, but we want to get fat from sources that don't clog up our arteries as much. So those are our unsaturated fats. And fat also helps to kind of keep your blood sugar from those big spikes that we talked about. So we want those fats to come from our unsaturated fats like nuts, nut butters, avocados, seeds. Eggs have a little bit of unsaturated fat. They have a little bit of saturated fat too, but they're also a great source of protein and fats. And notice here some of those foods that fall into several of those categories. So eggs have a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat. Seeds have some protein and some fat. Yogurt has some carbohydrate and some protein, and sometimes some fat too. So all of those are great options to include because they kind of hit so many different categories that we need. So the same concept can be applied to our other meals and snacks. And this looks different for everyone. So I encourage you to kind of analyze your day and identify if there are times during your day where you feel really hungry, or maybe you go a long stretch in between meals where you could use a little boost so you don't start to crave those sources of fuel we talked about. Recognize if there are times in your day where you feel what I like to call hungry or hungry and angry, and then identify what you can do to kind of help preventing that from happening. So for example, if I eat lunch at noon, which I usually do, I know that I have a hard time waiting 5 or 6 hours until I get home for dinner to eat again. So for me, I need a snack somewhere in between those two meals. And I call this a planned snack, something that I've thought about ahead of time, maybe packed up something that I know will help get me through that hump. And I've learned that not listening to my body, not providing myself with that planned snack and knowing that that's what I'll need, it's really, really hard when I get home at 6 o'clock to not seek out those sugary snacks or, popcorn is kind of my go-to. So the key is to kind of listen to your body, recognize if there are times throughout your day where you need to plan a snack in so that your body gets the fuel and those food groups in that we've talked about. And a well thought out planned snack can be really helpful for that. Another tip that can be helpful is to if you find yourself hitting that very hungry point before your next meal, is to keep a veggie appetizer tray in your fridge or pack that up as your snack at work. That can help get you through maybe while you're preparing your meal or when you need it. Remember, veggies are one of those that we tend not to get enough of. So veggies make a great snack as a kind of a little way to sneak more vegetables in there. Lastly, there are so many other things that can impact your meal routine. Not getting enough sleep or tossing and turning, not getting good quality sleep can cause you to want to eat more. Stress can impact your food choices. Your movement routines can impact your food choices. So keep all those things in mind when you think about your hunger levels and your food choices, and know that it's not just a willpower thing. There's a lot of things that can impact the choices you're making. When it comes to thinking about how you eat, sometimes we eat when we're very distracted. Our brain can sometimes not even register that we've eaten or we're satisfied. And when that happens, we tend to be looking for more food or experience these high hunger levels later on in the day. So just like we ignore our hunger cues, maybe we're busy, we work through lunch, we can ignore our fullness cues and other signals during meals. So things I'm talking about are eating maybe while you're driving or at your desk while you're working or in front of the TV or while you scroll on your phone. And if your brain is completely absorbed somewhere else, it can ignore the fact that you did eat and are satisfied. And that caused you to continue to feel like you might need to eat again, or can cause that overeating later on in your day. Now, this comes with one exception, and that is connecting with others, preferably face-to-face. So throughout history, mealtime has been a social or communal activity. It's a great way to boost those elements in your day. Socializing has lots of benefits, and it's something you can do while listening to your body's hunger and fullness cues. conversation naturally has pauses in it. So it's a lot less immersive than, say, zoning out and disassociating while you're on your phone or watching TV or something like that. So socializing in person during meal times, it's a great way to kind of step away from work so that when you go back, you feel refreshed. And your schedule may not allow for it every day, or maybe you can't get this in at lunchtime at all. You can try to prioritize this at other meals. Maybe you can do this with your family before work, or make sure your evening meal, you get that socialization time during a meal. So make it a point to kind of focus on your food and giving yourself that mental break, trying to get that social aspect of eating in when you can. And otherwise, it's important to note, it's important to try to minimize those distractions like screens during mealtime. Really focus on listening to your body and how your body is responding to what you're eating. Sometimes we do need to eat on the go, and that's okay. The key is to try to plan ahead, think about when you will be hungry and what your body will need at that time. When you plan ahead, it helps you ensure that you have a well thought out snack that meets your needs, helps you avoid those less healthful, convenient snacks that are all around us. All right, if you're listening to this presentation and you want to be entered in the National Nutrition Month raffle that our team is doing, we have a special code that you're going to need to email Julia Quattrini, and that code is asparagus, and her email is posted there. So go ahead and email that to her. You'll get an extra entry into our raffle, and we have some great prizes lined up for our raffle this year. All right, and then lastly, we're going to just touch quickly on eating with the environment in mind. So our food choices can affect the health of our not only our health, our personal health, but the health of the planet. So it's important to think about what your food choices, how they're impacting the environment as well. When we think about the environment, I think it's important to realize that we are the environment. We are part of the environment. It's not something separate from us. We rely on the environment to grow our food, to drink, for water, for clean air. And so when the environment is suffering, that has a direct impact on our health and the health of our generations to come. So it's a good idea to make it a point to learn about what's involved in growing your food, visit local farms or farmers markets, talk with the people who are growing and harvesting your food, and finding ways to reduce food waste is also a great thing for the environment. Things like composting, making use of leftovers. I think we talk a little bit more about that on the next slide here. So get creative with leftovers and learning how to reduce your food waste. This will also help reduce your food cost. Freezing your food, not letting your food go bad. Enjoy more plant-based meals and snacks is another thing that's really great for our environment and for our own health. Buy foods that are in season and try to buy locally when possible. And if you can, grow some food at home or in a community garden are all some ideas to help you eat with the environment in mind. And then lastly, I just want to point out that if you need a little extra help, a lot of these changes can be overwhelming and intimidating. So we are here to help. The Nutrition Services team has about 5 registered dietitians right now, and we have 4 health educators, and we understand these complexities that are involved in eating well, and how to focus on that preventative wellness. So if you find yourself needing a little bit more individualized care, you can schedule an appointment with one of our dietitians. The number to call is there on the screen. Or if you don't want to come and do a one-on-one consultation, keep an eye out for some of our wonderful programming. We almost always have food at our programming and feature a healthy recipe. Or you can just send us an email and let us know you need some help with recipes or whatever it might be. You do not need a referral, and our consultations are free. So we are here to help, and we are looking forward to helping you out if you need it. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation. Hopefully I will see you around, and I hope you join us for some of our other National Nutrition Month activities.